Get it, boys.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long time. Welcome back to, believe it or not, the series finale, the season finale, whatever you want to call it, of HTF Bets today. First off, we missed you all. Thank you all so much for at least tuning in to one of our four other main shows where you've seen me, Nick, and Rob have been co-analysts and debating so much stuff. I mean, I know, guys, that we've missed so much between March Madness and we saw Baylor take it home. We're now in the MLB season. Stanley Cup playoffs are nearby. The NBA playoffs are nearby. But one of the biggest things we're going to discuss today is one of the biggest times of a down period for NFL fans, which is the NFL draft. We are less than a week away from all the amazing, crazy party that goes down in Cleveland, Ohio. Rob, the draft as a Rams fan, it usually feels different around these times because you don't usually have the first round pick since Jared Goff was your quarterback. I mean, how you feeling? I mean, draft is almost here. It's always interesting seeing teams picking up guys, getting the needs to fill, and being able to see what is a close to reality TV at its finest.
Yeah, no, I mean, even with, the Rams not picking the first round, I like to just watch what other teams do and stuff like that because the league does get shaken up. And I feel like this draft in particular is pretty deep. I mean, last year's was pretty deep as well, but I feel like this one is even more deep. Like the terms of wide receiver talent that's in this class, the quarterback talent, outside of Lawrence is a little thin, I think, as far as being sold on guys who are legit starters, but there's definitely a lot of quarterbacks. There's some really good running backs as well. So I feel like this is a really good draft coming in ahead of this draft. But no, definitely even as someone who doesn't really have a stake in the first round because the Rams don't have a first round pick, it's still so exciting to watch the NFL draft every year.
Well, you always have also the Dolphins to watch because they also have a couple of other top picks too. We know last year you were all in for Tua. The miracle in Miami came through. Nick, usually for Buccaneers fans, the draft is always a bit of a high and a bit of a crapshoot. This year, you guys are picking dead last, the 32nd pick. I mean, usually in years past, I know the draft might have been critical for Bucs fans. How are you feeling overall, even with the Bucs taking the very last pick in this year's draft?
It's kind of cool going into this year and not really having to worry about anything. And I'm used to seeing my pick happen in the first hour of the draft. And it's going to be in that back hour where I'm usually falling asleep a little bit. But they gave me a reason to stay up. But I don't even know if we're going to keep that pick. And the beauty of it is, I mean, the Bucs don't really have a glaring need at the moment. So I don't think there's going to be much disappointment regardless of who the pick is. They really can go any position they want. And I think we'll be like, okay, whatever. So from that standpoint, I'm still excited for the draft. And like Rob said, this is one of the best events of the year. Last year did not feel like the real thing, I think, for everybody. And this year it kind of is just great to get that realism back.
It's interesting just last year how it was, even though I think we still all had fun being on the draft show last year. I mean, it's going to be awesome to be back in the studio. I know even in years past, I would even go to the Dolphins draft party event, and that was always a fiesta in itself. So I'm personally myself looking forward to it. The Steelers this year are back in the first round after couple years ago taking Devin Bush with that early pick, which Pittsburgh usually never takes an early pick, but I'm interested to see who Pittsburgh takes. And like I said, this is also fun if you're betting because the mock draft is where most picks come and go in it. But I think we all can agree that the first round, it's going to be a no-shoot that Trevor Lawrence is going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But for the New York Jets, a lot of people have been targeting Zach Wilson, and I think he is a likely fit for Robert Saleh and the New York Jets. I mean, Nick, Jets fans, they usually suffer so much pain in the draft. You can ask my uncle. Is Zach Wilson the answer for them at quarterback, probably since they haven't had it since Joe Namath?
It's hard for me to answer that question because if you would ask me in 2018 if Sam Darnold was the answer, you would have gotten a resounding yes out of me. I'm a big Sam Darnold fan, still am. But it didn't work out with the Jets. But this is a new regime. This isn't Adam Gase. I think this is a much better option, a head coach with Robert Saleh, a guy who's really respected around a lot of guys in this league. But he is a defensive guy, so it's going to be up to the offensive side of the ball there with the coaching staff to get the best out of Zach Wilson. And, Zach Wilson, I didn't get a chance to watch much of him this year at BYU, but down there at the bowl game, when they played UCF, I was able to see it front and center. And I was like, wow. I mean, he really just blew me away completely, just the way he was in the pocket, the throws that he made. And he also was he looked a lot bigger than what, he looked like on TV too. And I think that helps definitely in this draft process as well. He's about 6'3", 6'4" on his good day. So I think Zach Wilson definitely is going to be the right pick here for the Jets. But I know a lot of people are in on Fields as well. And I think they're very close in terms of what they can be. But I think all indications lead that this pick is going to be Zach Wilson.
Rob, I think Nick mentioned all the talking points. I mean, some people have questioned the fact that because of the offense that Zach Wilson played in at BYU, could he translate to the NFL? Because that type of mobile style quarterback can win you games, but can it get you over that championship hump has always been the proverbial big no. Are you sold on the Jets being Zach Wilson's home in the Big Apple with Gang Green?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think with Nick, I think Zach Wilson absolutely is a lock. A few months ago, there were still, which is way too early to do mock drafts, I think, but there were still so many people thinking, maybe the Jets are going to trade the pick. Maybe the Jets are going to, draft Penei Sewell. But no, I think now a week out, you're locked in on Zach Wilson. They need a quarterback. Sam Darnold's gone. This is the guy you have to build around. And like Nick said, it's a new regime. Robert Saleh, is bringing in his regime. It's not Adam Gase anymore. So at least Zach Wilson already has that going for him. They signed Corey Davis to a huge deal. So he'll have better wide receiver than Darnold, I think, really outside of Robbie Anderson ever had. Sam Darnold never really had great wide receivers. But I think ultimately Zach Wilson's success, whether or not his game at BYU translates to the Jets, I think it's just the Jets have to build around him. And that's where you have to get an offensive line. I think this is critical for the Jets in the next draft or even in this draft. You need to start drafting offensive linemen. They took Mekhi Becton last year, but it's not enough. They signed a lot of guys in the offseason last year, and it was just adding volume, not really adding quality. So he's going to be running a lot. And luckily he has that control and that poise in the pocket. So he's really mobile, so he can get away from, those situations. But no, ultimately his success is going to come down to the Jets continuing to build their team up, because they do have a lot of holes on the defense and on the offensive side of the ball.
The Jets have been a team that I've always felt like, and even every year when they ever seem to get like a big load of money or ever they have a high draft pick, they've always seemed somehow to mess it up. And I don't know why I'm starting to feel like there's a tide turning a little bit for this team, because the Jets haven't been relevant since Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez. And that's saying something, because this was a team that went to back-to-back AFC championship game before missing the playoffs for over a decade. So I'm hopeful to see it. I've had my concerns about Zach Wilson, where I feel like that the hype has been a little bit too much on him, where it could have gone to other quarterbacks in the draft, like a Kellen Mond, maybe Kyle Trask, even though I'm not sold on him being even a first-round pick anymore. But, proof is starting to show for Zach Wilson, and I'm looking forward to where he lands it. I think he is a lot for New York. What about, though, the San Francisco 49ers? Because they made the excessive trade, Rob, in order to trade from Miami, which was originally the Texans pick, to get that spot. San Francisco is really looking at a quarterback. They've been looking at a quarterback since the offseason. Deshaun Watson sweepstakes was closed. Justin Fields, Trey Lance. Who are the 49ers taking with that third overall pick?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to come here and say that they take Justin Fields, because in my opinion, I think Justin Fields is the second best quarterback in this draft after Trevor Lawrence. I think Justin Fields is just that good. But no, I think they're centered on Mac Jones. And why, I don't really know. I think they like the QB leadership from him. I think they like his boys. They like what they saw at Alabama. But you have to worry about the Alabama quarterbacks. Even Tua, Mac Jones had a Heisman Trophy winner on his team last year. He also had Jalen Waddle. Everybody forgot after Jalen Waddle's injury that Jalen Waddle was considered the best wide receiver on that team. He had Najee Harris in the backfield with him. So he has one of the best offensive lines in the country. So Mac Jones had everything given to him at Alabama to succeed. And I think he's going to a very good San Francisco team that does need a quarterback for the future. But I think this is the luxury of where San Francisco is. San Francisco, barring injury, is going to have all their defense back. So that absolutely helps. They have their offensive line, which is good. They have good wide receivers. They have a good running back. And I think they will settle for, a quarterback like Mac Jones that they can build around. This is a project quarterback. He doesn't need to start right away. They can start Garoppolo for the rest of the year, which I think this is the plan. I think Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch know this. Sit Mac Jones for the year. Let Jimmy Garoppolo get you where he can get you to. And then after next year, after he's developed, you put him in, you trade Jimmy Garoppolo. That's what I think their long-term plan is here.
Mac Jones, when you said that, I was like, like I said, he has not shown me the best out of his quarterback. You mentioned the Alabama quarterback history. I mean, Tua, he's had his concerns. I mean, Jalen Hurts, you consider him Oklahoma, but with the way that Lincoln Riley built him up. But yeah, that's always been a concern of mine because this ain't the 60s where I mentioned Joe Namath, Bart Starr, Kenny Stabler, where you're not getting those guys. Last guy that was even anywhere close, maybe that the downward trend started, was Richard Todd. So like I said, I've never been sold on Alabama quarterbacks. Nick, I mean, even though it's been a trend the last couple of drafts where you're starting to see Nick Saban, for some reason, produce some pretty good quarterbacks, are the 49ers really in? Because I personally think that when you have a talent like Trey Lance, and granted, Kyle Shanahan was looking for a quarterback that could be able to move around in the pocket and create plays. That's why they were interested in Deshaun Watson. Mac Jones is more of your typical pocket passer. Are you seeing the 49ers maybe liking Mac Jones with the 3rd overall pick?
I am. I really think that you could write that one in at this moment, just as much as you could write in Trevor Lawrence. And Schefter said it, and when Schefter says it, we got to believe it, right? But on the real though, I mean, Mac Jones, yes, he did come from he played with a lot of 5 stars, obviously, but he's going to a really, really good situation with Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle, and hopefully a healthy Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson in the back. I mean, it's definitely a way better situation than most rookie quarterbacks are going to be thrown into with Mac Jones. And I just think the way you don't just wake up and just all of a sudden do what he did at Alabama, throw over 40 touchdowns, over 4,000 yards. You don't do that in the SEC just out of nowhere. You got to have some kind of talent. And they obviously trusted him a lot. And I think, y'all have said about having a quarterback that can move and have that mobility. But if you go through the Kyle Shanahan history, it's Kirk Cousins and it's Matt Ryan. It was where Kyle Shanahan got the best out of his coaching, was with those 2 guys. I could make the argument that Mac Jones is almost a clone of Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan. So I think I think that's what Kyle Shanahan might be looking at. And I'm not saying it's going to be the right pick because, as Robert said, I think Justin Fields is quarterback 2 in this draft easily. And here we are. We're picking 2 quarterbacks behind him here with 2 and 3. But I think that might be some of the thinking that Kyle Shanahan has going on for Mac Jones. And we got to give it a shot. And the Niners are in a situation where they can afford to swing for the fences right now.
It's just like after the couple pro days that I've seen of Mac Jones, I'm oddly just still not sold. And granted, yes, this is a situation that I think any rookie quarterback could die for, in terms of the fact that you're literally jumping into a situation where you almost have a lot of talent around you, where you don't have to come in right away and be the situation. And I mean, Nick, you mentioned the success of quarterbacks. They had Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan. Remember, he did get a good chunk of RG3 before the injury. Okay. So I feel like Kyle Shanahan, that's why he was even looking at a Deshaun Watson, because, that type of build and the ability to elevate out of the pocket while still being able to launch a long one. I think that's why. And look, I agree, both of you guys, that Justin Fields is the 2nd best quarterback in this draft. And then everybody else, you can rank them any way you want to. But I just feel like the upside on Trey Lance is so high, where I feel like he can come in and he could potentially be a day 1 starter. If you're looking at maybe a quarterback competition for a team, if you're trying to battle it out, maybe duke it out with maybe your starter, I think this is what it is. I think they're trying to grind Jimmy Garoppolo and see, like, hey, if you're inconsistent, if you're healthy, we're going to give this kid a shot if we're not doing well or in the playoffs. So for me, I feel like even though Justin Fields is the 2nd best, just the upside that Trey Lance has shown, I feel like that pick is going to go to San Francisco, where I feel like Justin Fields may dip, but the old cliche, the deeper you go in the draft, the better the team. And I think that's where Justin Fields will be. We're going to switch up just a little bit because we know there's some teams in the draft who may be looking to pick out. The Atlanta Falcons, they have the number 4 pick. They've been in talks to swap out. Nick, are we going to see maybe a trade come draft night? And what team could you maybe see take that number 4 slot away if Atlanta decides to move back?
I think Washington wants to trade up. I really think they do. They're in a spot where they have a really talented roster, and the only thing they're really missing is a quarterback. And it's really time you'll get that before a lot of these guys that they're not paying a lot of money for a lot of their best players on defense, and of course Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson on offense. So they really need a quarterback because they need to maximize that before they have to pay everybody. But I don't think they have the resources to go up to 4. I think Denver does, and Denver is dying for a quarterback. Obviously, I mean they just have never been good at developing their own quarterback outside of John Elway. It's really been the exception. So Denver is dying for a quarterback, and I doesn't sit well with. I don't think it would sit well with John Elway and company for them to just sit at 9 and just try to hope for the best anymore. I think they've done that before, and I think they've learned their lesson by now with Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler, Drew Lock. I hate saying those names back to back like that. I hate saying these names, but I think that this is definitely a spot that they're going to go to 4. Yeah, if Atlanta stays, I think they're going to put a best player available, and that'd be Kyle Pitts. But if Atlanta moves out, which I think they're also in a great spot to do that, I think Denver is just made for this spot, especially if Justin Fields is sitting there at 4.
Absolutely. Rob, I mean, Nick mentioned Washington, Denver. Do you maybe see any other team taking up that number 4 slot? And if the Falcons do keep 4, Kyle Pitts, that's not a bad fit. I thought he was likely going to go to Carolina because I feel like that would be a perfect fit with that offense with Sam Darnold, Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson. But does Kyle Pitts maybe get with that Matt Ryan and already talented offense, granted if they don't blow a fourth quarter lead?
Yeah, I mean, if they don't trade the pick, ultimately I think they end up trading the pick to Denver, and I think Denver moves up and picks Trey Lance. I think that's their quarterback. I can see that totally being an Elway-style quarterback there where, that's who he wants to build his project around. But no, if Atlanta stays, I think Kyle Pitts definitely is the best player available. As much as they could use a Penei Sewell because their offensive line is not good, as much as they could even use a guy like Justin Fields, who's from Georgia. Matt Ryan's getting up there in age. I think they're paying Matt Ryan just a little bit too much money to move on from him just now. And they have, they can worry about a quarterback a little bit farther down the line. Taking Kyle Pitts, Hayden Hurst hasn't worked out since they let, their former tight end move on. Hayden Hurst didn't really work out. But no, they already have a really impressive offense. They have Calvin Ridley. They still got Julio. They got Russell Gage. They have a good offense. And if you can somehow get Matt Ryan some more help, even getting a top tight end like Pitts, who, you can even kind of convert to receiver a little bit. No, I think Kyle Pitts is so dynamic that he legitimately might be the best receiver in this draft. And that's going to make Atlanta, who still have a bad defense and a worrisome offensive line, and they got work to go. I think getting a tight end like Kyle Pitts absolutely revolutionizes your offense and puts you among some of the best offenses in the NFL.
I still feel like the Falcons are literally a team that could even use like that type of talent. I might even see them. I know it's not even talked about, but you lose Todd Gurley in the offseason. Granted, you signed Mike Davis, but I wouldn't even mind if the Falcons took a running back in the draft, where I feel like that's an immediate need that Matt Ryan could definitely use.
Not at 4. You'd have to move back.
You would have to, which if they do move back, because I've heard David Gettleman is in talks, really trying to see if they make a move up. And granted,
if they're moving for a running back, they better be moving back with Chicago.
I mean, really, do you guys even remember a running back going in the top 5? I feel like they're not as much of a commodity
as Zeke and Fournette go back-to-back years. And how'd that work out?
Saquon went top 5 too, didn't he?
Well,
who?
Yeah, Saquon did go top 5.
And how are these working out?
Well, Saquon is, granted, if he stays healthy, Nick, he's still a top 5 running back. But
all those teams are picking in the top 11 in the draft because they took running backs in the top 5.
Well, either way, I feel like it's a need for them. The Giants maybe could use that slot, maybe get an offensive line like Penei Sewell, but if not, Kyle Pitts, I see it happening. But speaking of Penei Sewell, one team that seems to love on him is the Cincinnati Bengals, but it's been a topic of a toss-up, Rob, between you either protect Joe Burrow or get his boy to start creating that championship magic that he predicted at LSU, Jamar Chase. The Bengals have a wild card with this pick. I think the safe bet is to get Penei Sewell because you want to protect Joe Burrow's poor ACL. You mentioned it. Is Penei Sewell the pick, or do you see maybe the Bengals adding to their receiving core? They did lose A.J. Green in the offseason.
Yeah, this is a hard one, but I think the logical move here for the Bengals, and for the sake of Joe Burrow, they need to draft Penei Sewell. We're talking about a generational offensive lineman here. This is a guy that might be with the Bengals his entire career if they draft him. So Joe Burrow, who was on pace right with Justin Herbert to start the season last year for Rookie of the Year, almost loses his leg. You even saw like the Bengals just released their jerseys, their new uniforms, and he's in the picture and you can see that huge scar on his knee from his knee surgery. I mean, it's bad. It was a bad injury. And for a guy who's supposed to be your franchise quarterback, you have to protect him. The Bengals offensive line is not good. And I think they can sacrifice the wide receiver position. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins were both really good last year. So I think sticking with those two and drafting a wide receiver later, maybe in the second or third round, I think that's the way to go. You have to draft Penei Sewell here. I don't care how much Joe Burrow wants Jamar Chase. I know he won the Heisman with him. I get it. I get why you want him. They don't need him. They need Penei Sewell. And that's going to make or break Joe Burrow's career, I think, is getting a top offensive lineman like this.
The last time I've even heard of like an offensive lineman being a generational talent like this, and even there's comparisons, Anthony Munoz as well, even the draft bust that was Tony Mandarich, but granted, he doesn't have like the bulk of him, but just his skill set and ability that could separate him from even some of the best offensive linemen in the game, like a David Bakhtiari. Nick, I mean, like I said, it's a tough thing of how to keep your franchise quarterback healthy. Do you get him a bodyguard or do you get him a playmaker? Are you on the same page with Rob that Penei Sewell is the top pick at number 5 for the Cincinnati Bengals?
Well, I think Cincinnati might be a candidate to even move out of 5.
Really?
Also, I do. I really do because I think that Penei Sewell is definitely the popular pick here, and I did mock him here at 5, but I think Rashaan Slater is really close to Penei Sewell. Really close. Like in any other drafts, Slater might be going where Sewell's going to go. I really think that. If you go, everybody wants to talk about the game where he locked up Chase Young 2 years ago, and he obviously opted out of this year. So I think that's a little bit of an uncertainty there, as he hasn't played in 2 years or whatever. But he's a freak. He's an absolute freak. I mean, not being talked about enough is an understatement with him. So I think this might be a candidate. If Atlanta keeps that pick, if Denver still wants to trade up, you can maybe try to trade back and maybe get Slater. But I will say, I do think they keep the pick in the end, though. But they're going to flirt with it. I think they're going to maybe see the mark out there to move out a little bit. But I think that they probably will stay put and take Penei Sewell.
Yeah, I just don't see it moving in. You even mentioned, Nick, I mean, with Rashaan Slater and Penei Sewell, they're so almost similar to each other, especially to the fact that they didn't even play last year. But I think that Penei Sewell is the safer pick. And as much as I think that it would be awesome for Joe Burrow to tag team, think about it. I think the Bengals, if they did take Jamar Chase, it's like getting Andy Dalton, AJ Green 2.0, except Joe Burrow is likely going to get a playoff win even before Andy Dalton does as a Bears quarterback. So
that one.
well, the luck will be on the Bengals side for sure. I think, like, even though the new uniforms are hideous, I can make another bet for that. But Penei Sewell, number 5, offensive tackle of the future. Maybe it's a gift from the heavens to say you got your franchise quarterback. Now here is another gift of almost getting Anthony Munoz in this new generation. So number 5, Cincinnati. Rob, I'm going to come to you again because this is different with the 6th overall pick, because the Miami Dolphins have a winning record but maneuvered a lot from the pick with the Texans and then the trade with the Eagles to move back. They're at number 6. Who are the Miami Dolphins taking to add and help with this regime with Brian Flores and Tua Tagovailoa?
Well, I think assuming Sewell is gone and assuming Pitts is gone and that no trade has happened, I think the Dolphins go Jamar Chase. I think Jamar Chase at that point is the best receiver in the draft, a legitimate deep ball threat. Miami needs that, and they can add that to Devontae Parker, Preston Williams. Obviously, they signed Will Fuller, oh my God, escaped my mind, poor guy. If he can stay healthy, Will Fuller's a good addition. And then you have, a guy who's on the verge of being a top tight end in Mike Gesicki. So that offense is good. And you set up Tua for, success. And then it solely rests on his shoulders from that point. But, if Pitts is there, I think they go Pitts. If there's any, barring trades, there's so many options that can happen here. I think the Dolphins probably have an idea of who they want. It's either Devontae Smith, it's either Chase, it's Pitts, it's, even Jalen Waddle. But there's been so many rumors now lately, Ian Rappaport saying that the Dolphins might be looking to move down again. And if they do, then I think they can take a guy like Waddle. But ultimately, who they think is going to be a best fit for that offense and for Tua Tagovailoa. And at this point, assuming Pitts is gone, assuming Sewell is gone, I think they go Jamar Chase. And I think they get that legitimate number one wide receiver that Miami's been looking for.
Jamar Chase from even the beginning of last season was linked to go to Miami because they were expected to be bad. They turned out to be really, really good. And they are literally, I think, an extra playmaker away from contending in that tight AFC East. Nick, I mean, this is what Dolphins fans originally wanted at the beginning of the season. We all know during the college football season, things change. I had them getting Devontae Smith because he's the Heisman Trophy winner. He's an all-star. I mean, literally throughout the performance in the college football playoff, you're never going to see what he put on, which I think he shattered a lot of, and I think holds a couple of the college football playoff records from what he did. Is it Jamar Chase just because he didn't play at all last year? Or are you taking the Heisman Trophy winner from wide receiver U out of the Alabama Crimson Tide?
Well, I'm not taking Devontae Smith. Spoiler, he is not in my top 10 here. Any of these picks.
Whoa.
What?
Not in your top 10? The Heisman Trophy winner is not in your top 10?
The Heisman's just a gimmick. It's just a gimmick. The Heisman Trophy has zero to do with how you're going to do in the NFL. Zero. I don't. But I'm going to go with Jamar Chase. With that being said, I'm going to agree with Rob on all the points he said. Miami really needs somebody who can get vertical, that can run really good routes. And those are two things that Devontae Parker does not do well. And I think Miami fans were kind of tearing him apart last year, which may be a little bit unfair when you look at who else was around him in that wide receiver group. And now you add a Will Fuller on a cheap deal, which I think is a really good deal because it's cheap, and Will Fuller is going to get PEDs or he's going to get hurt. So I think you definitely want to get it. You definitely want to get a young stud in that room. And in the draft class, where I think there's 4 wide receivers that really have separated themselves, I think Jamar Chase is still number 1.
Well, like I said, I mean, I just look at it as Alabama to Alabama. You know, you try to keep your quarterback healthy as much as you can. But, I mean, look, Jamar Chase is really the guy. I mean, even the playoff before we saw Devontae Smith do what he did, Jamar Chase was putting up almost those similar type numbers for the LSU Tigers. I wouldn't be upset if the Dolphins take him with the pick. I just feel like, in terms of comfortability, because his time at Alabama. So I wouldn't be surprised if Miami takes it, but you can't go wrong with either or. So, but the Detroit Lions, though, Nick, they could definitely use a receiver. They lost their 2 number ones. So is this the slot that maybe you see Devontae Smith going to the Motor City, or do you see maybe another player? Well, obviously Devontae Smith is out of your top 10. So who are the Lions taking with that number 7 pick then?
They're taking Jalen Waddle.
Oh, no.
Jalen Waddle is wide receiver 2 in this draft. I've been saying it for a long time, and I'm sticking by it. Because if Jalen Waddle was healthy all year, we wouldn't be talking about Devontae Smith, the Heisman, which you love to bring up. We wouldn't be talking about any of that because Jalen Waddle was going to get his. And I'm looking at it from a strictly an NFL standpoint. Devontae Smith came today into his weigh-in at 160 pounds. I'm sorry.
I know it's not NFL weight. The boy is slim, but he's got speed and hands that you can't teach.
And Jalen Waddle can do the same thing. And look at him. He's a beast. He's an absolute beast. Okay. That's an Alabama boy. Okay. And I am convinced that he is going to be a star in the NFL. I love Jalen Waddle. He's just so exciting. I mean, turning on a game on Saturday, CBS, I was watching Jalen Waddle. I was watching, and I love Devontae. I get it. He was great in college, but I think Jalen Waddle projects better as an NFL receiver because he can do almost everything Devontae Smith has him with route running. I won't compare them there. But Jalen Waddle can run the deep ball. He can run routes pretty well as well. He's very versatile in that you can put him on the kick return and the punt return, which you saw him do at Alabama. It feels like any play he could take it to the house, and he's just so much more bigger and physical. So I think he's going to go right here at 7 to the Lions.
You know, and it's just like, and you've mentioned everything. I loved him when he was healthy. He's a gadget type player. He can kick return. You can do receiver sweeps, and he can be like a running back and go 0 to 60. Don't get me wrong. My concern was the injury and how that was going to impact him coming into the NFL.
I will say about the injury, he tried to gut it out in the college football playoff.
He did.
And he put on a show for the couple snaps he got in there, even with the injury.
He did.
The guy's a freak.
He's a tough kid. He looks
a lot closer to some of the freaks you've been seeing coming out of the draft lately than Devontae Smith does. And that's what I'll say about it.
I'll say he was hell of a lot better than Henry Ruggs in terms of like if Henry Ruggs were to enter this year's draft, because the way Ruggs was taken last year by the Raiders, you obviously saw that was overhyped and he hasn't done anything. If I'm thinking of a true wide receiver you for Alabama, like Jalen Waddle, healthy, hell yes, I would take him. But I feel like this is the slot where Detroit could do it, because like I said, I love DeVonta Smith, not just for the Heisman, but like I said, you mentioned it, Nick. How can you teach the route running and the speed that he has? He's slim. I get it. The weight is going to be something that he's going to have to work on when he gets to the league. He's going to have to put on weight. But you can't tell me when you want a fly pattern going wide, if you want to run a sprint bomb, that you wouldn't want the speed and the ability to beat the defensive back that DeVonta Smith possesses. But I mean, Rob, we've mentioned our points. Is Detroit going to take a Jalen Waddle, or is this DeVonta Smith, or do you have any other player that the Lions need? Because they need help all around. Jared Goff is going to need a lot more help than he did in LA.
Oh yeah, listen, I don't disagree with Nick. I don't think Jalen Waddle is not top 10 worthy. I think a lot of people have him out of the top 10, and he probably is, like Nick said, probably the second best wide receiver in this draft. He's really, really good. Really good. And like you said, when he was in the college football playoff, he comes on the field limping, makes a great catch, and then walks right off the field again. Like, the guy's a freak. He is 100%. And I think, with the NFL, especially the draft, it's all about what you could do for me lately. And I think with the Detroit Lions, I think they're going to look at it as, we need to take DeVonta Smith because everybody's talking about him. He won the Heisman. Waddle was hurt, didn't get to live up to as much potential as we know he has. So I think they're going to go DeVonta Smith at 7. I don't think maybe they should. I think Waddle should probably go over, but I think that's going to cause Waddle to drop, is the injury, and also people just being in love with Jamar Chase and DeVonta Smith. And I think it's leading a lot of teams to forget about how good Jalen Waddle is, because Jalen Waddle is very, very good. And that's why wherever Jalen Waddle is taken, he's going to be a steal wherever he's taken at. I mean, that's why even the Dolphins, if they end up trading down and taking him, that's a huge win for them. So I think any team that takes Jalen Waddle is very, very smart. But I think the Lions are so desperate to get one of these dynamic wide receivers to replace Kenny Golladay. And I know he's a deep ball threat, but, they lost Marvin Jones as well. I think getting DeVonta Smith, and then also you already have TJ Hawkinson and stuff like that, I think you can absolutely help your team, and I think they're going to take a chance on Smith, and I think that's where they're going at 7. They're definitely taking a wide receiver, no doubt about it.
Oh yeah, and it's not like I'm saying DeVonta Smith is going to be a better than Calvin Johnson or better than anything like that, but it's just like we all know that this is a need for the team, and really the Lions, they usually go for the big names, but I feel like this is a big name that you can bet your money that in a couple of years you're going to mention him as one. I'm not saying DeVonta Smith is going to be a top 10 receiver, but he's going to be definitely a playmaker that you could say, hey, like this guy is awesome and he's raw, and like maybe somebody I could, but I just feel like either way, they're not going wrong with either or. Jalen Waddle, again, it's to me the injury, and I feel like with that, and even he gutted it out, he represents toughness, but it's going to be a project a little bit because that ACL injury that he had, ACL injuries feel like nothing to recover from nowadays, but for a receiver that's used to running, cutting, and, with the leaping playmaking ability that he's been blessed with, that's something that you're going to have to try to work with and make sure that you keep him on the field, because if he gets hurt again, are you going to really enjoy the years of production that you would love to have with him? And that's where I feel like is the problem, why Jalen Waddle may be falling or maybe rising, is for the fact that screw the injury. He's much bigger. He's the prototype. And prototype, Heisman Trophy, it's always hard to battle with that. But Detroit won't go either way wrong. What about the Carolina Panthers, Rob? This is a team that has shattered their expectations this offseason. I mean, they got the quarterback that they wanted in Sam Darnold. They traded to get him. This is where the Panthers are a bit of a wild card now with this pick. Some people have Rashaan Slater. I had Kyle Pitts. Potentially, if he does fall, if the Falcons maybe do get a quarterback, I feel like this would be a perfect fit for Sam Darnold in that offense. But where do the Panthers go with this pick? They could easily even get help on the defensive back position with the loss of James Bradbury.
Yeah, I think they have to. I think they have to go offensive line here. This is where I think Rashaan Slater goes. Nick was talking about how good Rashaan Slater is. He's great. Absolutely worthy of a top 10 pick. Probably a shame that he's fallen this far, but I think there's just so many teams that need a quarterback in this draft. And unlike last year where a lot of the wide receivers fell out of the top 10, I don't think that's going to happen as much here. I think we're looking at, the wide receivers are going to be taken where they're projected to be taken. I think Rashaan Slater is one of those offensive linemen that has to go top 10. And listen, Carolina has, you want to talk about bad offensive lines. Carolina has a bad offensive line. And whether they start Teddy Bridgewater again next year or whether they're starting Sam Darnold, you're going to fall into the same problem that Sam Darnold did in New York if you don't get an offensive line. So getting Rashaan Slater for the left tackle position absolutely 100% makes sense. Carolina should do the right thing and draft Rashaan Slater here. It's a perfectly logical move.
I think, in my opinion, that this is where the first defensive player comes off the board because, in my mock draft, I have Patrick Surtain, who I think would be a perfect help in their secondary. Like I mentioned, you lose James Bradbury, your secondary is very, very bad. And really, last year, Matt Rule really took the mine route. I still think they need to bulk up their defense a little bit. And I think Patrick Surtain is one of those corners that you just don't find them anywhere else. And if I know some South Florida boys, Devin Bush Sr. to Devin Bush II, you're going to fall in line with Patrick Surtain Sr. But Nick, Rob mentioned it's a pretty good point. You have that you get with Rashaan Slater. So do the Panthers do this pick? Because I could definitely see them getting Patrick Surtain to be the ball hawk defining safety that is going to be, I think, in my personal opinion, a top 5 corner in the next couple of years.
I agree with Rob here. I'm going with Slater. As I mentioned, a lot of versatility to him. He played right tackle. Last time we saw him, he was playing right tackle in 2019 for Northwestern, and he was a bulldozer. And I think, obviously, Sam Darnold needs the help, no doubt about it. And you saw perfect example is the Bucs. It doesn't matter if they're left tackle or right tackle. They drafted Tristan Wirfs, put him at right tackle. He's top 5 right. He's going to be good wherever you put him. And, of course, this offense is going to run through Christian McCaffrey, so you need more guys on that line as well to keep him upright, to get the lanes open for him. And of course, in the passing game, when he gets those screens and he's operating as a receiver, you need a tackle that can really get down the field quickly. And Slater's able to do that as well. So I think it's a perfect fit here. And this is definitely where I have Rashaan Slater coming off the board.
And it's nothing wrong with that, guys. I just feel like, there's some really good talent at the defensive position. And I feel like Patrick Surtain has been rising in terms of post the season, just his pro day and everything. He's showing basically, hey, unbelievable talent. And I feel like Carolina, you can't go with either wrong. I feel personally, though, that this defense is so bad that you need to try to get playmakers to shore them up. They didn't get much of anybody in free agency, and they've been just rebuilding a lot through the draft. I think the trend continues with Carolina to be able to get, I think, another really, really good. They got Derek Brown last year, did an astounding job for his role. I was upset with the pick where I felt they should have gone Isaiah Simmons. But I think Carolina secondary, because like I said, there's most receiving yards in the league, the third most receiving touchdowns over secondary. This is where Carolina grabs him. And don't worry, I have Rashaan Slater at another pick, but we mentioned the Broncos potentially trading up. So we did mention the quarterback. Let's get to that 10th pick because it's time to talk about him, Nick. The Dallas Cowboys. This is where I have Rashaan Slater, believe it or not, because the Cowboys are going to need to protect Dak Prescott and that fat contract that he does. But a lot of people don't see Rashaan Slater in Big D. So who are the Cowboys taking with that 10th overall pick?
I'm going J.C. Horn. That's my cornerback. That's my. You gave your cornerback one. That's my cornerback one. And ironically, they both come out of the SEC. So how about that? But no, J.C. Horn, he's a dog. He's the kind of guy you want back there in the corners. And I mean, look at the guys he covered. Go down the list. Jalen Waddle against him, 1 catch for 12 yards. 1 catch for 12 yards. Jerry Jeudy, 1 catch for 7 yards. Kyle Pitts, 1 catch for 20 yards. This is what this guy does. He locks down the people that Surtain ain't covering because they're obviously on his team. But J.C. Horn has gone up against the best competition that college football's had to offer on a South Carolina team that was not very good, a dysfunctional South Carolina team with Will Muschamp, and he's been an absolute star. And again, this is one of those things. I know Surtain has all the hype around him, and I think he's like the media's pick to be that cornerback one. I think the media always just has that one guy they fall in love with, and they're always the Alabama guys. I get it. But J.C. Horn, I think if you take a closer look at these guys, I think J.C.'s got him. And I think on that Dallas defense, he'd be awesome. And this is all. And if Atlanta was to trade that 4th pick and go to 9, I would have JC going 9 here and Surtain going 10. So I'm not trying to, I'm not rubbing Surtain into the mud or anything like that. I think they would go 9 and 10 in my scenario, but I'm going to go JC here with this mock draft.
And it's just like my problem is though, like granted JC Horn's a stud, but again, you mentioned this is Will Muschamp's team that he usually come, and really with a lot of the players that have come out from his drafts from Florida and with South Carolina, to me, they're not ready yet and they're not Showtime enough. for the big time. And granted, I think he's going to be a great corner, but it's just that matter of development because a Will Muschamp player who usually comes out of that first round, they're not prepared. They're not built up to the height. They're either too preseasoned or not enough
I
season.
think Javon Kinlaw was pretty good last year. I don't know about you.
I loved him. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't see the ball dominant playmaking that I thought he could bring, Nick. And I was looking for him to kind of be like that anchor hybrid defensive end linebacker that is almost like a TJ Watt.
Who?
Clavon Chason, right? You mentioned
Kinlaw,
Javon Kinlaw. Oh yeah, my
playing linebacker. He ain't dropping into coverage.
my bad. I got mixed up, but J.C. Horn's nice. It's just Patrick Surtain. He's been a freak in his pro day, and I've watched some of the stuff. Now, mind you, like I said, it's not just the fact that his dad's the head coach at American Heritage. That and the former. Oh,
there it is.
Look, I didn't go to American Heritage, but I watched him from South Plantation High School, and my God, he is a super freak, and his dad is a former NFL. J.C. Horn, his dad's Joe Horn, former Pro Bowl wide receiver. This is Patrick Surtain, Miami Dolphins star and Pro Bowler and amazing guy. And like I said, I've seen him firsthand. And of course, at Alabama, he's proven that he's got daddy in him. So I'm not surprised. Top 10 South Florida boy. I got to stick to it. But Rob, my also concern with J.C. Horn is that because the last time the Cowboys did a South Carolina cornerback, Morris Claiborne, it sucked. So are the Cowboys going to take a J.C. Horn, maybe a Patrick Surtain? Because like I said, I see Rashaan Slater dropping, and Jerry Jones needs to be able to protect his $1 million investment in number 4 in the star on his helmet.
Yeah, well, in my mock, I have Rashaan Slater already gone. So at this point, it's between the two corners. And I'm going to agree with Nick here. I think it's J.C. Horn. I really do. I wanted to go before Nick because I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to say J.C. Horn. I don't think they're going to say it. And he says J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn is the definition of a lockdown, shutdown corner. And this is what the Cowboys need.
We said the exact same thing 10 years ago about Morris.
You know what? You should get your Carter vote because you just said Morris Claiborne. He went to LSU. Thank you very much. I don't think for 1 second I didn't miss that one.
Wait. Mo Claiborne went to South Carolina.
No, sir.
You sure about that?
I'm dead sure.
Oh, I'm dead wrong. Apologize.
Anyway, Rob, continue hyping up my boy J.C. Horn.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, J.C. Horn is really, really good. And like Nick said, Patrick Surtain is going to get all the hype just because he goes to Alabama, Alabama defense, Alabama corners, blah, blah, blah. He's really good. Don't get me wrong. He absolutely is really good. But J.C. Horn, I think, is the best corner in this draft. I think this is a guy you put on every other NFL team's number 1 wide receiver. He's going to shut them down. He's not going to – it's a lot like Jalen Ramsey. And I know you don't love Jalen Ramsey.
Oh, my God.
Okay, well, I know you don't love him, but that's the definition of a lockdown corner. And that's what J.C. Horn is. He's a lockdown corner. He's going to shut down the other team's number 1. And that's what you need. And that's what the Cowboys need. Their cornerbacks aren't great. They need to revamp their defense a little bit. Their offensive line is okay. It's fine if they don't get Rashaan Slater. As important as it is to protect Dak, especially after last year, getting a corner, especially a top corner, after letting Byron Jones go last year, you need it. And the Cowboys are going to be looking at either one of the two corners. And I don't think you make a mistake going either one, but I think the right choice here is J.C. Horn. And I think that leaves the Giants taking Patrick Surtain most likely right after.
It's just for the Giants to get Patrick Surtain is the fact that I think that they already found their guy in James Bradberry. Now, it would be an interesting tag team. Don't get me wrong. To have Bradberry and then Patrick Surtain in your secondary, and that's going to be a nightmare for a lot of opposing receivers and quarterbacks to deal with that come game day. But like I said, if in my mock draft, for like as much as I love Rashaan Slater, I just think that Jerry Jones really needs to look and say, like, look, I can try to maybe trade back, get a corner maybe in the later rounds as a steal. There's Richie Grant, there's Aaron Robinson that you could potentially pick in that side. And I'm not just saying that because we're from UCF, but I just feel like after Dak's injury, Zach Martin retires and you're losing some of Tyrone Smith. He's getting up there in age. And, how long are you going to keep, Dak Prescott running for his life? And that's where I feel the Cowboys could potentially trade, which getting a Rashaan Slater, being Dak Prescott's bodyguard is going to be a big help because you want to protect that leg. You want to protect your investment. And then you need to get Ezekiel Elliott running holes because he couldn't run through anything. And he had so many fumbling issues last year for the Cowboys. So I could see the Cowboys maybe getting offensive line or the cornerback. But like I said, J.C. Horn, I just don't want another Will Muschamp shoot up, spit out project that ain't fully seasoned yet.
I don't think Jerry Jones wants another Trayvon Diggs, who he took last year in the first round. We saw how that worked out.
Well, it's a development in progress, Nick. That's why they call rookies. Okay, but there are guys who come in and do stuff. But Rob, if you would have said Xavier Howard that, because I don't want a 1 year wonder and then to go a 2 year wonder, I'll say, because he did a good job this year. But like I said, you all know my feelings towards Jalen Ramsey. I think there are a lot of corners that are better than him. I will still say Marcus Peters is better than him. I will go to my grave with that. But we're going to continue on to finish off because you're going to see more of us talking about this on our draft show next week. But to wrap up this segment, Nick, we talked about the potentiality of some teams trading up, trading down. Who's maybe one team that you feel is going to maybe make that draft swing push to maybe move up in the top 10 or fall back in the later rounds to grab somebody?
I think the one team we haven't brought them up so far is New England. They seem to be pretty popular in that they're trying to move up a little bit potentially and get one of these quarterbacks. You know, you've seen Belichick and McDaniels have been at all the quarterbacks pro days. Really, they were definitely they were there at Mac Jones. They got the Justin Fields for his second one. So I think they're in a position also where they don't have to, if they really are not convinced that one of these quarterbacks is going to play day one, they don't have to. And I think that's why Cam Newton was brought in there as a buffer. But then again, I don't think Bill Belichick likes to lose. And I think if you're staying, I don't think it's really worth it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them move up. And like I said, I mentioned Cincinnati as like a potential spot. The reason why I didn't pull the trigger on it, I don't think Cincinnati would benefit much from dropping to 15. If New England was sitting there with 9 or 10, okay. 15 is too big of a drop. So you have to look at the trading partners there. Maybe Detroit would be a trading partner because Detroit also needs defense, and Micah Parsons is somebody who he might fall, and Detroit maybe could scoop him at 15. So that's potentially a trading partner, I think. But I think New England's going to be active regardless on draft night.
No, like I said, the Patriots are going to need a lot of help. Belichick is re-up and reloading. He's coming. And whether it's not this year, within the coming years, with all the money that he spent in free agency and all the activity that he's been doing on a lot of pro days with him and Josh McDaniels, he is going to get a quarterback or he's going to get somebody within the rounds, even if he dives into the later rounds, which has been his meat for years. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the Patriots do, because this is a team that is likely going to try to trade up in the draft in that top 10 slot. I'd even potentially tinkered in an old mock draft of mine where the Cowboys could even trade away from that slot. Granted, I can't see them trying to trade a top 10 pick where it could benefit their defense, which is very bad, or benefiting Dak Prescott. Rob, any other teams maybe that we haven't even talked about at all? Any wild card teams you feel that might even maybe take a swing on a trade on draft night?
No, I mean, off the top of my head, you know, I don't think there's really any other teams. I can't really think. I mean, it just depends on. There's so many teams that are looking for defense. I don't think you're going to move up to take someone like Micah Parsons or anything like that, just because I think Micah Parsons is going to fall. Same with like Kwity Paye and all that. They're all going to be there in the mid-teens. But no, I think, you know, it's like me and Nick are sharing a brain cell. When I was thinking of that question, I was thinking of New England. I think if New England's going to move up anything, it's going to be to take a quarterback like Justin Fields. But I don't know if they necessarily need to move into the top 10 because I think Fields is going to make it out of the top 10. And New England has a pick outside the top 10 where I don't really see any of those other teams taking a quarterback. So Fields might be there for them when their pick rolls around without trading. But I think they really need to start thinking about quarterback because Cam got signed to another 1-year deal. I doubt he makes it past this year. As much as I love Cam Newton, I just don't see it happening with him. I don't think he has the talent around him. I don't think he has the talent anymore to do it either. But no, I think they need to really start thinking about a quarterback, and getting a guy like Justin Fields, I think makes a lot of sense. Before, everybody was talking about, maybe they'll go Mac Jones, but with Mac Jones likely being gone with number 3, I think Fields is a guy that either falls to them or they'll trade up a couple picks to get, so that they ensure that they get Justin Fields. But, Denver is really their only competition there, because Denver is probably going to be taking a quarterback and moving up for it. But I see them taking Lance. So I think New England should be fine. They'll probably end up getting either Waddle if he falls there, or Fields. They got many options to go, because that New England team definitely has a lot of holes now.
I've alluded to it a little bit here today, where I could see the Giants potentially moving up. Even though that they're in a good spot at 11, it doesn't hurt to get a little bit of help, whether you're trying to bolster more talent for Jalen Ramsey, or even get more help for your defense. 2 teams where I feel like could also maybe look at it. Another team that's in a decent slot in the draft, but I feel like could get some help as well. The Minnesota Vikings, I feel like they could potentially try to swing a trade. Granted, even though they might get Jalen Phillips out of Miami, who could be a bolster for their run defense. They've lost Everson Griffin. They lost Yannick Ngakoue. So they're very much hurting in that position. And Danielle Hunter needs help. So I wouldn't mind them trying to maybe trade up. Maybe if they swap with the Chargers, or maybe swap up for the 11th pick with the Giants. And then I think personally, as much as I would love to see it, Pittsburgh, back a couple years ago, I said this earlier today when we traded up for Devin Bush, that came out of nowhere for us to steal one of the best linebackers in the draft. And he's already, proof is in the pudding. But if Pittsburgh doesn't trade up, where I think they could utilize it to either get an offensive lineman or to potentially get defensive back help, which would it be interesting if they could add Patrick Surtain with Minkah Fitzpatrick? You still have Joe Hayden there. That would be fun. But I would love to see it. Pittsburgh did it to me out of nowhere, 2019. 2 years later, could things happen because they're in a weird transition? We'll see what happens. But to wrap up this segment, Rob, one quick pick. Give me one player that you feel like is going to be a surprise pick or going to be a surprise drop in the draft.
Surprise pick, Rashad Bateman. I think wherever this guy gets picked, I think he's going to get picked first round. Rashad Bateman is really, really good. I think he's one of the most underrated receivers in the draft. I think everybody is focusing so much on Waddle and Smith, as well as they should. I think they're focusing on the Alabama guys and Pitts and all that so much that they forget that Rashad Bateman is really, really good as well. And I think in a lot of other drafts, Rashad Bateman's probably a top 15 pick. He's really good. And it's just because people don't watch Minnesota a ton. But no, I think that's a guy I could see the Patriots taking too if they don't go quarterback, is a guy like Rashad Bateman. I think he's really, really good. And I think he's going to surprise a lot of people how good he actually is.
That would help with the disappointment that N'Keal Harry has been. I know Sean would be pleased for that. Nick, who's your maybe one surprise pick and then maybe one surprise drop in the draft?
Well, Rob is just – we're like this today. I mean,
we got the brain cell connected.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I said it, I think there's 4 receivers that have separated themselves here in the pack, and Bateman is there. And I mean, I know you're all in on your Devontae Smith, but I think Bateman is, I think I could make the argument. I'm just saying. But no, last year, every year there's a guy that goes in the first round that nobody thinks, right? And I was fortunate last year. I got that right with Damon Arnett going 19.
Yeah, who? I remember that well.
Raiders did that great with him. So I'm going to take another stab at it, and it's actually going to be with 31 with Kansas City. They need tackle help after letting go of Fisher and Schwartz. There's a plethora of tackles I think they could take once they get here, but I think they're going to go Jalen Mayfield from Michigan, who I don't see him in many mocks right now going in the first round. And I think there's going to be a lot of tackles like an Alex Leatherwood, who definitely from Alabama is going to get his hype, a Dylan Reduns from North Dakota State, Brady Christensen, BYU. There's going to be a lot of options around there. And I think ultimately Mayfield is going to be the guy that jumps those and gets into the back end of the first round, because I just love what he did at Michigan, and he played in a lot of big games, obviously, there as well. So I like Jalen Mayfield. I think he's going to be that guy that gets in.
No, I mean, you, like I said, like you mentioned, you guys sharing a brain cell. It's usually been the chemistry all year that we've done this show. You guys have been 2 peas in a pod at times.
That's because we have great takes, Okelo, and you just don't have great takes.
I have great takes. You're gonna dang well like the last thing that I have. So I'm going to say my surprise pick. I feel like a receiver who got a lot of talk before the college season. And, you know, I feel like because of the big names, he's getting lost in the shuffle. But I would not be surprised if a good team gets him. Rondale Moore out of Purdue. I think this has been a receiver that does not get a lot of hype, especially coming from a program like Purdue. But Rondale Moore, it's weird that I'm going to say this, but I see a lot of A.J. Green in him. And that's saying a lot for a receiver of his size and stature. But, you know, I think that he's a playmaking threat that I think maybe you could see him creep up maybe in that top 15 slot. I know that he's been kind of flying under the radar, but he's been, to me, that quiet pick that I feel like is going to transcend stud. I mean, we have so many Moores in the NFL, but I think Rondale is going to be a stud. And it's like, and I feel like he is a lot better than maybe Elijah Moore. And maybe even, like, I wouldn't dare say Rashaan Bateman, but if we're talking the top 4 receivers in this draft, you damn well better put Rondale Moore in that slot, even better than even Rob from USC, Aquinas St. Brown. I think he's even better. He's starting to, for some reason, drive up the sun god, as he's mentioned, where his name comes from. One drop I'll say, and I think we've all talked about our premier corners, but let's give some love to 2 guys, Greg Newsome, and let's give some love to Caleb Farley, which I think it's a shame that for Caleb Farley that he's been dropping so much in drafts. And granted, you know, the pro days and stuff haven't been his best, but I think if we're going to compare like a corner that is NFL ready, that's lockdown material, that is getting the interceptions for touchdowns, a Richard Sherman mixed in with an Xavier Howard, Caleb Farley is that guy. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a team takes a flyer on him to drop back. The Cowboys, Nick, that would be a guy where I feel like, okay, I feel like you would be happy with that type of player. So those are some of the guys that I'm going to give some love to because, again, you know, like Greg Newsome, fluid, explosive cornerback who routinely makes plays. I mean, look at what he did to so many guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones and to even Chase Olave in some of the big-time games. I love Greg Newsome and I love Caleb Farley. It's such a shame that SEC talent can sometimes be so big and fat in terms of the media's eyes that we forget that there's some really good guys from these smaller programs that do just as great as talent as they can. And I'm looking forward to that. But to tune in for more of our reactions and our analysis, make sure to tune into our draft show Thursday. I know we always sign off with this, but I'm going to get a little emotional here and I apologize. But I just want to thank each and every one of our viewers for tuning into every episode. Nick and Rob, I was going to save this for the draft show, but it's been a pleasure working with you guys this past year to do this show. From start to finish, I couldn't be more proud of working with you 2 guys. Granted, we've had some fun. We've had our laughs. We've had our cries. We've had some of my best takes and some of my worst takes being crapped on. We've had a lot of enemies against me, Okelo holics, Rob fanatics, and Nickonites. This is the first time that I'm ever pronouncing these type of things, and I wish I would have done it more, but because you 2 are going to be graduating this semester, and hitting the field won't be the same without you guys, and I'm sure HTF Bets, but I'm hopeful maybe in the future that we'll continue many of these conversations and many of these type of analysis and in-depth, and I look forward to seeing what you guys impact, hopefully as we all make an impact in the near future. Looking back on this type of show and looking back at where we got our start. So I just want to say to you guys, it's been a pleasure being a co-host with you guys and all the crazy guests and all the fun that we've had. It's been a pleasure and I look forward to it. So I just want to give the floor to you guys before we say sayonara to our fans. If there's anything that you want to get off your chest, Nick, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to keep it short. When Sean told me that I was going to be on this show with y'all, I was very surprised, as I've told him before, but he believed in the concept of this show and the 3 of us to pull it off. And, you know, we've put a lot of time into it and a lot of research and, you know, every week being prepared to go and ready to entertain and provide some good insight. And I think we accomplished that, and we got closer as it went on, and we became much more comfortable from each other when I go watch the first show and I just go watch what we just finished up. So It's been a very fun experience that I did not see coming whatsoever. But with that, I'll give it to Rob.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short as well. First off, thank you both, just for being here with me and every week. I appreciate it. Even coming in to last semester when we started the show, I didn't think I'd be hosting anything either. I had just joined HTF with Nick 2 semesters ago, right before COVID. I was on some of the HTF shows for a few weeks, and then COVID hit. We went completely online. And then at the start of HTFN over the summer last year, I was told, we're going to be hosting with Okelo and Nick. You're going to be hosting a show. I was like, cool. I don't know how to run a show, but we'll figure it out. And, we figured it out. And I think that's for sure has been the most experimental of any of the shows, just because it is a betting show and it's unlike anything I think HTF had ever done. So definitely I'm glad to be part of that trend, glad to be part of HTFN. I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss the show every week, but you know what? It was worth it. Every episode was worth it. So I'm just happy. And thank you both for being on that journey with me.
It's been fun. We all came to HTF together. We did the same thing. COVID happened. And then little did we know that we would get this opportunity to do it. You guys are very talented. I know Sean went on his rant in the series finale of Almost Game Day about how much everybody at HTF and how we've done it and how we've been able to pull it off in the various locations that we've been in. And I'm just grateful that we've been able to grow because of the show and that we've been able to express our talent. You guys are boys for life for me. And, I'm just thankful again that I got to bring out my best and my A game, and granted I get crapped on a lot and I love playing the bad guy sometimes. But either way, whether you're Nick and Knight, you're a Robaholic, or even an Okelo-holic, it's been a fun journey, and we thank you all for being with us. And as we sign off today, this is it. That's our show for now. Hopefully, maybe you'll see me, Rob, and Nick combine maybe on another platform some other time soon. Stay tuned again for our draft show next week as we wrap up, as Nick and Rob will sign off from HTF for a while, but your boy will still be here in the fall. Thank you so much again for tuning in with us, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great rest of your week. And again, we will see you all on draft.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.